The market buzzed with morning energy, a living, breathing organism of sounds and smells. Jin moved between the stalls, her canvas bag swinging against her hip, fingers lightly brushing past bundles of fresh herbs and stacks of crisp vegetables. The autumn air carried a slight chill, making her pull her thin jacket closer. Her family's small restaurant needed supplies, and Jin knew exactly what to buy. She'd been running these errands since she was 12, learning the art of selecting perfect ingredients from her mother. Today felt different, though. Something in the air seemed slightly off balance, like a note slightly out of tune. Siak was arranging vegetables at his family's generations-old market stall. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, learned from years of watching his father and grandfather. Each tomato, each green onion was placed with calculated precision. He wasn't just selling produce, he was continuing a family legacy. Their eyes met accidentally, a moment so brief it could have been imagined. Jin noticed his hands were strong but gentle, weathered from years of farm work. Siak saw a determination in her eyes, a spark of something beyond just another morning market routine. Around them, the market hummed. Street vendors called out prices, old aunties bargained with sharp tongues, and children weaved between legs, their laughter echoing against stone walls. Bicycles clinked, motorcycle engines rumbled in distant streets, and the smell of fresh bread mixed with the earthy scent of recently harvested vegetables. Jin's fingers touched a bundle of spring onions, checking their freshness. Her mind wandered, momentarily, thinking about the restaurant, the lunch rush, the dishes that needed preparation. She didn't realize Seok was watching her, intrigued by her focused movements. A sudden gust of wind swept through the market, causing some loose papers to dance and stall covers to flutter. It carried with it the smell of distant fields, of earth and possibility. Jin's hair slightly lifted, a strand falling across her face. She brushed it away, unaware that this small gesture had caught Seok's attention. The market wasn't just a place of commerce. It was a living canvas of community, of stories waiting to be told. Every person here had a history, a reason for being exactly where they were at this moment. Jin and Seok were no different. Two individuals whose paths were about to intersect in ways neither could predict. Seok's family had owned this stall for 3 generations. His grandfather had started with nothing more than a wooden cart and determination. Now they supplied some of the best restaurants in the city. Every vegetable told a story of hard work, of soil carefully tended, of seeds nurtured into life. Jin's family restaurant was known for its home-style cooking, recipes passed down through generations, each dish carrying memories of celebrations, of comfort, of survival. Her mother had taught her that food was more than sustenance. It was a language of love, of connection. As morning progressed, the market transformed. Early quiet gave way to vibrant energy. Conversations overlapped, creating a symphony of urban life. Seok continued arranging his produce, occasionally glancing up. Jin moved between stalls, her movements purposeful yet somehow graceful. They didn't know it then, but this morning was the beginning of something significant. Not a dramatic love story, not a Hollywood-style meet-cute, but something more subtle. A connection waiting to unfold, a narrative that would slowly reveal itself like morning mist clearing to reveal a landscape. The wind continued to blow, carrying whispers of possibility. Leaves danced around their feet, a silent choreography of change. In this moment, in this bustling market, 2 lives were about to become subtly, irrevocably intertwined. Jin completed her shopping, her bag now full of fresh produce. Seok watched her walk away, a mixture of curiosity and something undefined flickering in his eyes. Just another morning in the market, or was it? The day continued, unaware of the small, almost imperceptible shift that had just occurred. The market kept its rhythm. Vendors continued their calls. Motorcycles continued their distant rumble. But something had changed, though no one could quite put their finger on what. The wooden chest sat in the corner of Jin's family home, covered, with a layer of dust that spoke of years of neglect. Her grandmother's room always held a sense of mystery, with faded photographs and forgotten memories tucked away in corners. Jin had never paid much attention to it before, but something drew her to the chest that particular evening. Soft evening. Light filtered through the curtains, casting long shadows across the wooden floor. Her parents were out, the house quiet except for the gentle hum of the refrigerator and distant street sounds. Jin's fingers traced the intricate carvings on the chest's lid, wondering about the stories it might hold. With a gentle push, the lid creaked open. Dust swirled in the air, catching the last rays of sunlight. Stacks of old papers wrapped in faded ribbons filled the chest. Yellowed photographs peeked out from between documents. Jin's heart raced with a mixture of curiosity and something deeper, a feeling she couldn't quite explain. One photograph caught her eye. It was different from the others, slightly worn, but carefully preserved. A young couple stood together, their faces telling a story of both hope and hidden pain. The woman wore a traditional dress, her eyes holding a complexity that spoke of untold experiences. The man stood slightly behind her, his hand barely touching her shoulder. On the back of the photograph, a few lines were written in faded ink. Jin's grandmother's handwriting. She recognized it immediately. The words were cryptic, mentioning a place she didn't recognize, a name that seemed both familiar and strange. Seok's name entered her thoughts unexpectedly. She remembered their brief encounter at the market, the way he had looked at her. Something about that photograph seemed connected, though she couldn't explain how. The next day, Jin found herself distracted. During the restaurant's lunch rush, she kept thinking about the photograph. Her mother noticed her distant look, asking if everything was all right. Jin mumbled something about being tired, but her mind was elsewhere. At the market, she found herself scanning the crowds looking for Seok. Their previous encounter played in her mind, a moment so brief, yet somehow significant. He was arranging vegetables at his family's stall, seemingly unaware of her watching. Something pushed her forward. Against her better judgment, she approached his stall. Seok looked up, recognition flickering in his eyes. "Hello," Jin said, surprising herself. With her own boldness, Seok nodded, a slight smile playing on his lips. They talked about mundane things, the weather, the market, the day's produce. But underneath the casual conversation, something else simmered. A connection. A sense of unspoken understanding. As they talked, Jin noticed an old photograph tucked into Seok's wallet. When he reached to pay for something, it partially slipped out. It looked similar to the one she had found in her grandmother's chest. Same era, same style of dress. Coincidence? Or something more? The market continued its rhythm around them. Vendors called out, people moved between stalls, life continued. But for Jin and Seok, something had shifted. A subtle connection was forming, like invisible threads weaving between them. That evening, Jin returned home. The photograph from the chest lay on her desk, waiting. She compared it with a quick sketch she had made of the photograph she'd glimpsed in Seok's wallet. The similarities were too precise to be random. Her grandmother had always been a woman of secrets, stories half told, memories carefully guarded. Jin remembered how she would sometimes look at old photographs with a mix of pain and longing, speaking in hushed tones about past times. Something was waiting to be discovered, a story buried beneath years of silence. Jin could feel it, a narrative that connected her family's past with something larger, something unexpected. The photograph seemed to whisper, secrets pressed against the edges of what was known, waiting to break free. Jin understood that some mysteries are meant to be unraveled, some connections are not coincidental. As night fell, she knew her journey of discovery had only just begun. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, tucked between bills and restaurant supply catalogs. Its envelope was different, thick, cream-colored paper with an old-fashioned wax seal that looked like it belonged to another era. Jin's hands trembled slightly as she broke the seal. Sunlight filtered through the kitchen window, casting warm patches on the worn wooden table. Her mother was preparing vegetables for the restaurant's lunch service, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. Jin read the letter once, then twice, her breath catching in her throat. The document spoke of a land deed, something that dated back decades. Names were carefully written in elegant, almost calligraphic script. Locations mentioned were unfamiliar, yet somehow they felt connected to the photographs she had discovered in her grandmother's chest. Siok's name appeared in her mind again. She couldn't shake the feeling that he was somehow connected to this mysterious document. The market, the photographs, now this letter. Everything seemed to be converging in ways she couldn't understand. That afternoon, the restaurant bustled with its usual lunch crowd. Regulars filled the small tables, their conversations mixing with the sounds of cooking and clinking dishes. But Jin's mind was elsewhere, the letter hidden carefully in her apron pocket. After the lunch rush, she found herself walking towards the market, not intentionally, but as if drawn by an invisible thread. Siok was there, arranging vegetables with the same careful precision she had noticed before. "Can I help you?" he asked, noticing her approach. Jin hesitated. How could she explain the complicated web of thoughts running through her mind? The photographs, the letter, the sense that something significant was waiting to be uncovered? "I found something," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Siok's eyes changed. Something flickered in their depths. Recognition, anticipation. He invited her to sit at a small cafe near the market, away from the crowded stalls, and listening ears. The afternoon light created long shadows. An old man played a traditional instrument nearby, its melancholic notes adding to the atmosphere of mystery. Jin pulled out the letter, spreading it carefully on the table between them. Siok's reaction was subtle but unmistakable. His fingers traced the document's edges, a muscle twitching near his jaw. "Where did you get this?" he asked, his voice controlled, but intense. She told him about the chest, the photographs, the growing sense that something significant was waiting to be discovered. Siok listened, his eyes never leaving the document. "My grandfather used to tell stories," Siok said slowly. "Stories that everyone thought were just old man's tales. About land, about families separated by circumstances beyond their control. The city around them continued its rhythm. Motorcycles buzzed past, street vendors called out their wares, children played on nearby sidewalks. But in this small cafe, time seemed to stand still. The land deed spoke of a property in a rural area, a place with historical significance. Names were connected in ways that suggested more than just a simple business transaction. It hinted at a deeper story, of separation, of loss, of something carefully hidden. Jin's grandmother had always been mysterious about their family history. Conversations would start and then abruptly stop. Old photographs would be quickly hidden away. Now those fragments were beginning to make sense. "We need to investigate this," Siok said, his voice a mixture of caution and excitement. Their hands almost touched as they examined the document. A spark of connection, of shared purpose, passed between them. They were no longer just strangers who had met at the market. They were now connected by a mystery that demanded to be solved. The old musician continued playing, his melody a backdrop to their growing understanding. Secrets have a way of finding light, of demanding to be heard. This was more than just a document. This was a key to understanding something profound about their families, about their history. As evening approached, the market began to quiet. Stalls were packed up, daily business concluded. But for Jin and Siok, a different kind of journey was just beginning. The letter lay between them, a bridge between past and present, between what was known and what was waiting to be discovered. The full moon hung low and heavy, casting silver light across the quiet neighborhood. Jin's family home stood silent, the restaurant kitchen cleaned and closed for the night. Siok arrived unexpectedly, a manila envelope tucked under his arm, his face carrying the weight of unspoken revelations. Her parents were out of town, attending a distant relative's wedding. The house felt different. Suspended between silence and anticipation, Jin made tea, her hands moving automatically while her mind raced with possibilities. My grandfather never spoke directly about our family's history, Siak began, his voice low and measured. But he would tell stories. Stories that seemed like folklore but now feel like carefully guarded truth. The old photographs spread across. The kitchen table told a complex narrative. Generations interconnected in ways neither of them had imagined. Land records, faded marriage certificates, fragments of a history waiting to be understood. Siak's grandfather had been more than just a farmer. He was a keeper of memories, of secrets that could destroy or heal. The land deed they'd discovered was just the tip of a much larger story. During the economic changes in the late 1970s, Siak explained, many families were forced to sell their land. Some lost everything. Some made difficult choices to protect what remained. Jin listened, her tea growing cold. The moonlight created strange shadows on the wall, almost like silent witnesses to the unfolding narrative. The story emerged piece by piece. Their families had been connected decades ago, not by friendship, but by a complex network of economic survival, a land transaction that wasn't just a simple sale, but a carefully negotiated survival strategy. Jin's grandmother had known more than she'd ever revealed. Those cryptic comments, those half-told stories suddenly made sense. She had been protecting something, a truth too painful to share directly. My grandfather always said some secrets are better kept hidden, Siak mentioned, his fingers tracing the edge of an old photograph. But some secrets demand to be understood. The marketplace where they had first met now felt like more than a coincidence. It was a place of connection, of hidden threads slowly coming together. Their families' histories were more intertwined than anyone could have imagined. Economic struggles, land disputes, family honor, these were not just abstract concepts. They were lived experiences that had shaped generations. Every decision made decades ago had ripple effects that reached into their present moment. Outside, a dog barked. A distant motorcycle rumbled. The city continued its nighttime rhythm, unaware of the revelations unfolding in this quiet kitchen. Jin's hands trembled slightly as she examined the documents. Dates, names, subtle connections emerged. What had seemed like random pieces were now forming a complete picture. We can't change the past, Siak said softly, but we can understand it. His grandfather's stories weren't just tales. They were carefully preserved memories, a way of protecting a complex family history. Economic challenges, personal sacrifices, moments of difficult decisions, all were woven into these documents. The marketplace where they had first met now felt like a sacred space, a place where hidden connections could finally surface, where histories could be acknowledged and understood. Moonlight continued to pour through the window, illuminating their shared discovery. They were no longer just individuals. They were guardians of a complex family narrative. What do we do now? Jin asked, her voice a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Siak's response was measured. We honor the truth. We understand the sacrifices made. We ensure these stories are not forgotten. Their hands almost touched across the table. A connection deeper than romance, deeper than friendship. A shared understanding of family, of history, of the complex ways generations are connected. The night continued. Documents spread across the table told a story of survival, of difficult choices, of family honor preserved through challenging times. Jin and Siak were now part of something larger, a narrative that extended beyond their individual lives. As dawn approached, they had transformed from strangers to custodians of a shared history. The marketplace, the photographs, the land deed, everything had led to this moment of understanding. Some truths take generations to emerge. Some stories require patience, compassion, and a willingness to look beyond surface appearances. Winter arrived quietly, painting the city in soft shades of gray and white. The marketplace transformed, vendors bundled in thick jackets, breath forming small clouds in the cold air. Jin's family restaurant became a warm refuge, steam rising from hot dishes, offering comfort against the season's chill. Something had changed between Jin and Seok. It wasn't a dramatic love story, but a deeper connection, a understanding that went beyond words. They had become guardians of a shared history, keepers of a complex family narrative that demanded respect and careful handling. Jin's mother noticed the difference first. The way Jin spoke about Seok, the careful way she handled the old documents, the new sense of purpose that seemed to radiate from her. Family secrets have a way of shifting everything: relationships, perspectives, understanding of self. Seok's grandfather had passed away the previous summer, leaving behind a collection of journals and photographs. What had once seemed like random memories now felt like carefully preserved historical documents. Each page told a story of survival, of economic challenges, of family honor preserved through difficult times. They decided to document their discoveries, not for public consumption, but as a tribute to their family's resilience. Long evenings were spent in Jin's family kitchen, sorting through photographs, cross-referencing documents, piecing together a complex historical puzzle. The land deed that had started everything became more than just a piece of paper. It was a testament to survival, to the difficult choices families make during challenging economic times. Their grandparents' generation had navigated impossible situations with grace and determination. Their relationship defied simple categorization. They weren't just potential romantic partners, nor were they simply researchers. They were something more, partners in understanding and preserving a complex family history. The restaurant became their meeting place. Between lunch rushes and dinner preparations, they would discuss their discoveries. Jin's parents watched with a mixture of curiosity and pride. They recognized the importance of understanding family history, of honoring the sacrifices of previous generations. Winter deepened. The marketplace became quieter, vendors fewer but more determined. Seok continued to work his family's vegetable stall, now with a new sense of purpose. Each vegetable felt like a connection to his grandfather's stories, to the land that had sustained their family for generations. Jin's cooking took on a new dimension. Recipes became more than just food. They were stories, memories passed down through generations. She began documenting family recipes, understanding them as more than just culinary instructions but as historical narratives. Their families slowly came together. Casual dinners, shared stories, a growing understanding that transcended the original land dispute. What had once been a source of potential conflict became a bridge of connection. The documents they had discovered told a story of economic survival. Land sales, difficult negotiations, moments of sacrifice, all were part of a larger narrative of family preservation. Their grandparents' generation had made impossible choices to ensure their family's survival. "We're not just preserving documents," Seok would say during their research sessions. "We're keeping our family's spirit alive." Jin's grandmother, when she learned about their discoveries, wept, not from sadness, but from a sense of relief. Secrets that had been carried for decades could finally be acknowledged, understood, respected. The marketplace where they had first met became a symbol of their journey, a place of daily commerce, but also a space of hidden connections, of stories waiting to be told. Every vegetable, every conversation carried the weight of history. As winter began to retreat, giving way to early spring, they realized their discovery was about more than just their families. It was a testament to the resilience of ordinary people navigating extraordinary circumstances. Their story wasn't about dramatic revelations or Hollywood-style resolutions. It was about understanding, about respecting the complex narratives that shape families, about honoring the sacrifices of previous generations. The land deed, the photographs, the carefully preserved documents, they were more than just paper. They were bridges between past and present, between what was lost and what could be recovered. Jin and Seok stood together, watching the first signs of spring emerge. The marketplace around them continued its timeless rhythm, vendors setting up, people moving between stalls, life continuing its beautiful, complicated dance. They had discovered something profound, that family history is not about perfection, but about understanding, about recognizing the humanity in our ancestors' struggles, about honoring the complex ways generations are connected. A new beginning had emerged, not just for them, but for their families. A story of connection, of understanding, of healing.